Before humanity learned to die, the gods had already bled for the world. Every civilization has whispered it, that existence itself was born not from peace, but from rupture. That beneath the rhythm of time, there lies a silent wound. The rivers we drink from, the breath we take, the warmth of the sun, all may be remnants of a sacrifice so ancient that even memory forgot its origin. But why would the eternal destroy itself to give birth to the fleeting? Why would perfection fracture into fragments just to let imperfection exist? The ancients believed that nothing could emerge without loss. Creation demanded payment. The universe was not spoken into being. It was torn into being. From the depths of the first chaos, the divine body was divided, scattered across eternity. Its blood became oceans. Its bones, the mountains. Its breath, the wind that still moves through us. In Norse sagas, that body bore the name Ymir. In the hymns of India, it was Purusha, the cosmic man. In the temples of ancient Mexico, it was Nanahuatzin, the god who cast himself into fire so that the sun could rise. Different names, different tongues, but the same whisper beneath them all, that life is borrowed from the death of the divine. Across myth, the gods are not distant observers. They are participants in the same tragedy that binds humankind. They die so that order may be born. They vanish so that we may awaken. Their sacrifice is not defeat, it is transformation. The death of a god is the heartbeat of the cosmos. Imagine the first dawn, a silence before light. The world is shapeless, heavy with potential, waiting for a sound, a movement, a gesture of surrender. Then, something immense falls apart. A divine body cracks open, and from its ruins, the stars ignite. Matter awakens. Time begins to breathe. The first light of creation is not illumination. It is fire consuming flesh. This idea unsettled and comforted ancient peoples at once. It told them that their own pain mirrored the gods. That every wound could also be an act of creation. That the universe itself is not built on harmony, but on the art of surviving destruction. And perhaps that is why the symbol of blood runs so deeply through every sacred text. Blood is more than death. It is continuity. It is what binds the invisible to the visible, the eternal to the ephemeral. To the ancients, the spilling of blood, divine or human, was never wasteful. It was a language, a contract written in life itself. But the question remains, who first taught the gods to bleed? Did the divine choose to suffer, or is suffering simply the price of consciousness? Is existence, in its very nature, a form of divine dismemberment? The one tearing itself apart into many so that it could know itself through us? Each myth answers in its own way, yet they all circle the same paradox. Creation is never gentle. To exist is to break, to lose, to burn, to be remade. The god's sacrifice is not a distant event but a pattern that repeats in every birth, every death, every transformation. When a star collapses, when a forest burns and regrows, when a heart shatters and heals, the story of the first divine wound echoes again. And if humanity was indeed shaped from divine remains, then perhaps our longing, our fear, our endless search for meaning, are not human flaws, but fragments of that ancient pain still remembering itself. Because deep within us, something still recalls the silence before creation. Something still remembers the moment when the gods fell apart. Something within us still hears the whisper that began it all. To create, something must die. And from that whisper, the story begins. Every civilization begins by answering a single question. What sustains the world? For the ancients, the answer was never mere matter. Not stone, not water, not wind. The force that moved the universe was something far more intimate, far more perilous. It was blood. To them, blood was not only life. It was meaning itself. It was the bridge between the visible and the invisible, the proof that the divine could dwell within flesh. When the heart pulsed, it echoed the rhythm of the cosmos. When blood was spilled, the boundary between gods and mortals thinned. Across millennia and continents, the same truth pulsed beneath temples, shrines, and altars. The universe demands exchange. For every seed that grows, something must wither. For every birth, a death must make space. The ancients did not see this as cruelty. They saw it as balance, the heartbeat of creation itself. In the ancient cities of Mesopotamia, Rituals echoed this logic of sacrifice. Priests stood before stone altars carved with symbols of the stars, offering the blood of animals to keep the divine order intact. The gods had once shaped humanity from clay mixed with their own essence, and now humanity returned a fraction of that essence through sacrifice. Blood was not a symbol of guilt, it was currency, a sacred transaction ensuring that chaos stayed at bay. In Vedic India, the same principle resonated through the yajna, the fire ritual. Offerings of ghee and grain were cast into flames while priests recited hymns describing the first and greatest sacrifice, the dismemberment of Purusha, the cosmic man. His body became the universe, and every human ritual was an imitation of that primordial act. Through the smoke, the worshippers believed they were reawakening that original creation, not remembering it as history, but reliving it in the present. Across the ocean, among the Mesoamerican civilizations, this idea reached its most visceral form. To the Aztecs, the cosmos itself was alive, but fragile, hungry, always on the verge of darkness. The gods had offered their own blood to set the sun in motion. Now humanity was entrusted to feed it. To stop the flow of blood was to let the universe die. To spill it was to keep the stars burning. To modern eyes, these acts may appear cruel. But to the ancient mind, they were acts of love. Not sentimental love, but cosmic reciprocity, an understanding that life survives only through the gift of death. The victim upon the altar was not merely killed, it was transformed, its essence reabsorbed into the living cosmos. Every cut, every drop, was a reminder that existence itself is a cycle of offering and renewal. In this vision, blood became language. It spoke where words failed. It said, "I am alive, and because I am alive, I must give back." The ancients did not believe they were appeasing cruel gods. They were maintaining a delicate harmony. If the gods bled to create the world, then humanity must bleed, symbolically or literally, to sustain it. The sacred and the mortal mirrored one another in a pattern that never ceased. And yet, within this logic hides a deeper question. Who taught whom? Did humans learn sacrifice from the gods, or did gods emerge from humanity's need to make sense of its own suffering? The two ideas reflect each other like twin mirrors. Perhaps the myth of divine sacrifice is not a memory of divine action, but a revelation of the human soul, the instinct that understands, even without words, that nothing endures without loss. To ancient peoples, blood was more than substance. It was a map of the cosmos. Its rhythm echoed the tides, its color mirrored the sunset, its warmth resembled fire, the same element that transformed matter into spirit. When blood touched the ground, it was absorbed like rain, disappearing but never lost. It re-entered the earth, returned to the cycle. This understanding shaped art, ritual, and law. In Egypt, blood was rarely spilled, but the heart, was seen as the vessel of truth, weighed in the afterlife against the feather of Mot. In Greece, libations of wine symbolized the same act without the literal sacrifice. Wine itself was the blood of the earth, fermented life offered back to the gods. Even when the knife disappeared, the idea survived, transmuted into symbol. The Eucharist of Christianity, where wine becomes the blood of God, is not a rejection of ancient sacrifice but its ultimate transformation. The physical made metaphysical. The language of blood remained, only written now in mystery instead of flesh. And so, the ancient understanding persists, reshaped yet eternal. Creation is not an act of accumulation, but of surrender. To give, one must lose. To sustain, one must consume. To live, one must die, and die endlessly, in 1,000 small ways. The ancients recognized in the flow of blood the rhythm of all existence. Movement, exchange, transformation. The river that flows to the sea, the star that burns itself to give light, the body that decays to nourish the soil, each is a continuation of the first sacrifice. Perhaps that is why, even in a world that claims to have outgrown ritual, the idea of blood still fascinates. We watch it in films, we whisper it in prayers, we fear it in ourselves. Beneath all logic, something deep within still remembers the truth encoded in every heartbeat, that life was never meant to be kept, only shared. When the ancients poured blood upon their altars, they were not simply asking for favor. They were speaking back to the universe in its own language. A language older than speech. A language of pulse, rhythm, and release. A language that says, I am part of the wound from which the world was born. And in that wound, they found meaning. In the beginning, there was no sky, no earth, no sea, only the endless silence between fire and ice. To the north stretched Niflheim, the realm of freezing mists. To the south burned Muspelheim, the land of unending flame. Between them lay a void so vast it had no name. From the meeting of these extremes, from the kiss of frost and fire, something stirred. Steam rose, condensed, and from it emerged a shape. The first living being. The giant Ymir. He was not god nor man, but the raw pulse of existence itself, chaotic, immense, and alone. From his sweat and breath came the frost giants, and from the melting ice formed the first cow, Audhumla, whose milk sustained him. As she licked the salty stones of Ginnungagap, another form emerged, Buri, the ancestor of the gods. From Buri came Bor, and from Bor came 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Ve. These young gods looked upon Ymir and saw in him not just life, but potential, a universe waiting to be shaped. Yet in his massive body, they also saw danger. For Ymir's dreams birthed monsters. His existence fed chaos. If order was to rise, it could only come from his destruction. So the gods conspired, and the first murder in existence was committed. They struck Ymir down. His blood poured across the void in torrents so vast they drowned entire generations of giants. His bones shattered, his skull split open, his breath released into the nothingness. But from that carnage, creation began. His blood became the seas that circle the earth. His flesh became the soil beneath our feet. His bones became mountains, and his teeth, the stones. From his skull, Odin and his brothers built the sky, a vast dome that still holds the stars in place. And from the sparks of Muspelheim, they lit those stars, embers of divine fire scattered across the firmament. At the center of this new world, they placed Midgard, the realm of men, and surrounded it with Ymir's eyebrows, forming a protective wall against the chaos that remained outside. Above, his brain became clouds, drifting eternally across the heavens. The gods looked upon what they had made and saw that the world was beautiful, but their hands were stained with blood. The universe had not been born from harmony, but from a sacred dismemberment. The Norse creation myth is not a tale of gentle beginnings. It is an act of violence transformed into meaning, a vision of order carved out of ruin. It teaches that the cosmos itself is a body torn apart, that existence is built on the remains of something greater. Ymir's death is not only a myth of origins, it is a mirror of human understanding. In him, the Norse saw the cycle that governs all things: creation through destruction, balance through conflict. His story whispered that even the gods were not beyond sacrifice, that every act of making demands a death. In this myth, the body of Ymir is the world's first offering. His death is not vengeance, it is necessity. The act of tearing him apart is an imitation of cosmic rhythm, an eternal exchange where nothing truly ends, only transforms. To the ancient Norse mind, this was not tragedy. It was truth. The world was fragile, temporary, destined one day to collapse into chaos again during Ragnarok, when fire and ice would once more consume each other. And yet, they found meaning in that cycle. Because in the end, Ymir's body did not vanish, it became everything. He was not destroyed. He was rearranged. His presence continued in every stone, every wave, every gust of wind that carried the scent of the sea. To walk upon the earth was, in a sense, to walk upon Ymir's remains, to tread gently on a sleeping god. There is a quiet reverence in this myth, a grim acceptance that all life is sustained by death, and that the divine itself participates in that law. The Norse did not see the world as fallen or corrupted. They saw it as sacred precisely because it was built upon sacrifice. The myth also reveals a deeper psychological truth, one that echoes across cultures. Ymir's body is not only the world's material, it is the human psyche itself. In every act of self-creation, something must be broken down. To become a new person, an old version must die. To bring order to chaos, the mind must dismantle what it once was. In Jungian terms, Ymir is the primordial self, the unformed totality of being. Odin's act of dismemberment is the moment consciousness arises, the separation of order from the unconscious void. From Ymir's death, awareness is born. The gods did not simply kill a giant, they killed unity to create multiplicity. This symbolism runs deep. The cosmos, as seen through Ymir's sacrifice, is not a fixed structure but a living organism that continually consumes and renews itself. Fire and ice, death and birth, chaos and order. Every cycle repeats the original act. When snow falls, it is the frost of Niflheim returning. When lightning strikes, it is the echo of Muspelheim's fire. And when blood spills upon the earth, it is the memory of Ymir's own blood still pulsing through the veins of creation. The story also holds a subtle warning. For in creating the world from Ymir's corpse, the gods established a debt, one that would one day demand payment. The same forces that gave birth to order would eventually reclaim it. This is the essence of Norse fatalism, the understanding that every creation contains its destruction, that every victory hides its undoing. And yet, it is this inevitability that gives the myth its beauty. Ymir's death is not despair, it is continuity. It reminds us that even in decay, there is sacred purpose. That life is not something opposed to death, it is its direct expression. In the hush of winter, when the earth sleeps beneath snow, one can almost feel the giant's breath frozen in the air. In the thunder, one can hear his heartbeat beneath the world's crust. Ymir never truly died, he only changed form. The gods built the world from him, but he built the gods in return, for their power depends on the body they tore apart. So the Norse myth of Ymir stands as one of humanity's most haunting visions of creation. It does not flatter us with light or peace. It tells us instead that existence is the child of sacrifice, that what lives must constantly feed on what came before. Every heartbeat is a repetition of that ancient pulse, the pulse that began when fire met ice, when silence became sound, when the divine learned to bleed. And perhaps, in some distant memory buried within us, we still remember his fall, the moment the first god died and the world awoke. Long before temples rose from stone and chants filled the air, the sages of ancient India spoke of a being so vast that all existence was contained within him. He was not born of any god, nor of any mother or father. He was the cosmos before the cosmos, pure potential, sleeping within itself. His name was Purusha. In the oldest of hymns, the Rig Veda calls him the thousand-headed one, the thousand-eyed, the thousand-footed. He stretched beyond the horizons of the earth, beyond the stars. The sun was his eye, the moon his mind, the wind his breath. He was everything that was, is, and will be. And yet, despite his perfection, the gods gathered to perform the first and greatest of sacrifices, the yajna of Purusha. They laid the cosmic man upon the altar of existence. His body became the universe itself. From his mouth came the priests, from his arms the warriors, from his thighs the merchants, and from his feet the workers, the first division of humanity. From his mind came the moon, from his eyes the sun, from his breath the wind. His navel became the sky, his head the heavens, his feet the earth, and his soul the invisible ether that binds all. Through his dismemberment, the world was born. The gods did not destroy him in hatred, they offered him as a gift, transforming unity into multiplicity. Through his sacrifice, time began to flow. From his essence arose all forms, all creatures, all laws. The act of creation was not an act of making something new, but of dividing the infinite so that it could be experienced. This vision is both terrifying and beautiful, for it declares that every part of reality, from the humblest pebble to the most distant star, is still a fragment of Purusha. He is not gone, he is scattered. The universe is his body, still breathing, still dreaming, still remembering. In the Vedic imagination, the sacrifice of Purusha became the archetype for all rituals to come. Every sacred fire, every offering of ghee, every mantra recited at dawn, each was a reenactment of that primordial act. When humans offered grain to the flames, it was not simply devotion, it was participation in the ongoing creation of the cosmos. To give was to maintain the divine rhythm. This idea shaped the very structure of Hindu thought. The concept of RTA, the cosmic order, the balance that sustains all. Sacrifice was not about appeasement, it was about alignment. To act in harmony with the universal rhythm was to live truthfully. To break that rhythm was to fall into chaos. And within that rhythm lay the paradox at the heart of existence. Unity requires division. Wholeness is born from fragmentation. The divine gives itself away endlessly, dissolving into forms so that it may know itself through them. Purusha's sacrifice is not a tragedy but a revelation, that creation and destruction are one and the same gesture. In giving himself up, he became everything. The gods did not command this act. They simply obeyed the law inscribed into the fabric of reality, the law that to exist is to transform. In ancient Vedic fire rituals, priests gathered around the sacred flame, their chants echoing like waves of sound through the dawn. The smoke rose into the air, curling toward the heavens, carrying offerings of clarified butter and seeds. Each ritual flame was seen as the mouth of the universe, a miniature version of the cosmic fire that consumed Purusha. The participants did not merely remember the first sacrifice, they became it. Through ritual, they rejoined the divine cycle. The fire received their offerings, and in return, life was renewed, rains would fall, crops would grow, and the cosmic balance would endure for another season. The ritual, therefore, was not symbolic. It was real. The same act that birthed the universe was being performed again and again, through human hands, across generations. Creation was not a singular event locked in the past. It was a pulse that continued forever, beating through fire and breath, through giving and dying, through the endless act of renewal. Philosophically, the hymn of Purusha carries a profound metaphysical insight, that the one becomes the many so that the many may return to the one. Existence itself is the play of consciousness dividing and reuniting with itself. The act of sacrifice is the act of awareness, the universe recognizing its own nature by experiencing limitation, form, and mortality. This idea would echo through millennia, shaping Indian spirituality. The concept of Atman, the inner self, mirrors Purusha's cosmic body. Each soul is a fragment of the divine whole, carrying within it the same essence as the universe. To awaken is to remember one's identity as part of Purusha. Even the gods, according to the Vedas, are bound by this pattern. They are not eternal rulers, but participants in the cycle. Creation, preservation, destruction, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, all are aspects of the same endless rhythm. The world is born from sacrifice, sustained by sacrifice, and will one day return to it. To modern eyes, this myth might seem distant, abstract, far removed from the violence of Ymir's death. Yet beneath its gentler imagery lies the same truth, that being requires surrender. Where the Norse gods carved the world from blood and bone, the Vedic seers saw the universe as a sacred offering, the dismemberment of the infinite into the finite. Ymir's body and Purusha's body are reflections of the same cosmic law. One drenched in crimson frost, the other in golden light, yet both proclaim that creation cannot come without sacrifice. The difference lies in tone. The Norse myth is tragic and defiant, the Vedic one, serene and accepting. Both speak of gods who give themselves away so that life may unfold. If Ymir's death teaches that order is wrested from chaos, Purusha's sacrifice reveals that order is the divine. His body is not torn apart in violence but offered in love. The universe, then, is not born from bloodshed, but from generosity, a gift from the eternal to the temporary. Every breath, every sunrise, every birth repeats that gesture. The fire still burns, the chant still echoes, the cosmos still consumes itself to remain alive. Perhaps this is the oldest lesson of all, that divinity does not sit upon a throne but lies within every grain of existence, broken and scattered, waiting to be remembered. To live, then, is to offer oneself, to become part of that eternal exchange. To lose, to give, to transform, that is the heartbeat of Purusha still resounding in all things. And maybe, somewhere beyond the reach of memory, the cosmic man still dreams, dreaming of himself, dreaming of us, dreaming the universe into being again and again. When the world had already been born and destroyed 4 times, the gods gathered once more in Teotihuacan, the place where they had first learned to die. Around them, the ruins of previous suns lay buried beneath volcanic dust. The sky was cold and dark. The stars waited, silent, for a new light to rise. The gods looked at one another and asked the question that would decide creation once again. Who will become the new sun? They built a great fire at the center of the world, a flame that burned without consuming, brighter than gold, deeper than blood. Around it stood the gods, each representing an element, a power, a destiny. But none dared step forward. To become the sun meant to offer oneself entirely, to fall into that fire and let it consume all that was divine. It meant to die so that others might live. Among them stood Nanahuatzin, a humble, sickly god covered in sores. He was not mighty, nor beautiful, nor brave. He had no weapons, no riches, no glory to his name. But while the others hesitated, he bowed before the fire. He said nothing. He simply understood. Beside him stood Texistocatl, radiant and proud, adorned with jewels and feathers, chosen by many as the most worthy. He was to leap first, to claim the role of the new sun. The fire roared, and Texistocatl approached it 4 times, but fear caught his heart. Each time he stepped back, the flame seemed to grow higher, hungrier. Then Nanahuatzin, without hesitation, closed his eyes and ran toward the fire. He leaped. The flames embraced him, swallowed him whole, and his body turned into pure light. A silence followed, then the sky ignited. A brilliant orb rose above the horizon. The 5th sun had been born. Shamed, Texistocatl followed, throwing himself into the same fire. He too emerged as a blazing star, but his light was pale beside Nanahuatzin's. The gods decreed that only one could rule the heavens. To humble him, they hurled a rabbit into Texistocatl's face, and so his brightness dimmed forever. That is why, to this day, the moon bears the shadow of a rabbit upon its surface. Yet the story did not end with the birth of light. The sun, radiant and still, refused to move. It hung in the sky, motionless, frozen by its own perfection. The gods realized that the creation was incomplete. The sun could shine, but it could not live. And so, one by one, the gods turned to the wind, to the earth, to the fire, and each offered their own hearts. They tore open their chests and cast their divine essence into the air. Only then did the sun begin to move. Its journey across the sky began not with triumph, but with sacrifice. Thus, the 5th age, our age, was born from the death of gods. In the mythology of the Mexica, the people we call the Aztecs, this moment defines the relationship between humanity and the divine. The gods gave their blood to ignite the sun, and in return, the world was charged with a sacred debt. To keep the sun alive, life must continually feed it. Without offering, the universe would stop. The world would fall into silence once more. It was not cruelty, but reciprocity, the same cosmic law that echoed in Ymir's bones and in Purusha's fire. The cycle must continue. Creation is not an act of possession but of surrender. To the Aztecs, every sunrise was a reminder of this fragile covenant. When dawn broke, it was not guaranteed, it was earned. The beating of the human heart echoed the beating heart of the cosmos. Blood was the language that kept the world in motion. They believed that the sun would only rise if it was nourished. Not by the gods, for the gods had already given all they could, but by humanity, who now bore the responsibility of sustaining the cosmic rhythm. And so the great ceremonies began. Priests stood atop pyramids that reached toward the heavens, lifting offerings of life to the east. The people below sang and wept as the first light struck the city. The rituals were not born of cruelty but of awe. They were acts of remembrance, a promise kept between creation and creator. The god who had been small became the greatest of all, for Nanahuatzin's leap into the fire revealed a truth older than time, that the divine is not measured by strength, but by willingness to give. The meek became the sun itself. The broken became the heart of the world. In this myth, sacrifice is not an ending. It is a movement. It is what turns the universe forward. Just as Ymir's body became the world and Purusha's body became order, Nanahuatzin's body became time. His leap was the beginning of motion itself. The sun moves because someone dared to give everything. It is a story that still burns quietly in the collective human imagination. Every effort, every act of love, every creation, each demands a leap into fire. The artist, the thinker, the parent, the dreamer, all must give a part of themselves to bring light into the world. This is the essence of the myth. The fire does not destroy, it transforms. Nanahuatzin did not perish. He became the radiance that sustains all life. His sacrifice is not tragedy but transcendence. It reminds humanity that even weakness holds the seed of divinity, that light often comes from the most fragile source. There is something deeply human in this vision, the understanding that existence itself is a delicate balance of giving and receiving. The Aztec gods, like Ymir and Purusha before them, reflect the same eternal pattern. that creation requires offering, and that the universe is built upon the courage to give. In every sunrise, that truth repeats itself. The fire still burns in the heart of the cosmos, consuming, renewing, waiting for its next offering. The sun rises not because it must, but because something, somewhere, continues to leap into the flame. And so, as the myth tells, the gods are gone, but the rhythm remains. The world moves forward upon the echo of that one small leap, the leap of a humble god into eternal fire. In 3 corners of the world, separated by oceans, languages, and centuries, the same story was whispered in different tongues. A giant's body became the earth. A cosmic man offered himself to birth the heavens. A humble god leapt into fire to rekindle the sun. Ymir, Purusha, Nanahuatzin. 3 names, 3 faces of a single truth. Creation demands surrender. Across these myths runs a thread as old as consciousness, a law that binds gods and mortals alike. The world, in all its beauty and terror, is not given freely. It is born from the sacrifice of the sacred. Every river, every gust of wind, every human breath, each is a continuation of that first divine loss. The Norse saw the cosmos as built upon a corpse, a body torn apart to form matter itself. The Vedic seers imagined the universe as the unfolding of a self-aware being, willingly dissolving into multiplicity. The Aztecs saw the sky ignited by divine courage, a leap into flame that transformed mortality into motion. Each vision carries the same heartbeat, though expressed through different tones. In the north, the myth is cold and tragic, the price of order carved from chaos. In the east, it is serene, creation as divine harmony, an act of love. In the high plateaus of Mesoamerica, it burns with fire and duty, the cost of light itself. But beneath these differences, the rhythm remains. The cosmos, it seems, feeds on itself to stay alive. These myths do not describe separate events. They are mirrors, fragments reflecting a single archetype, what Jung would have called the self-creating God, a being that divides itself to become reality, that dies to awaken into form. Ymir, torn apart by Odin and his brothers, represents the chaotic totality, life before structure. His death gives birth to matter, but it is a reluctant order, an uneasy peace. The gods, too, are guilty. Creation, for them, is an act of violence justified by necessity. They are both murderers and architects. Purusha, in contrast, surrenders willingly. His sacrifice is a ritual, not a rebellion. He does not resist the gods who divide him, for they are parts of himself. In his dismemberment there is no tragedy, only realization. Unity transforms into diversity so that existence may know itself. He is the divine acceptance of impermanence. And Nanahuatzin, fragile, scarred, overlooked, embodies the human face of divinity. His leap into fire is the culmination of the same cosmic pattern, but now infused with humility. The divine no longer commands, it volunteers. His sacrifice is not the end of one world but the ignition of another. Together, these 3 myths trace an evolution of consciousness, from chaos and compulsion to order and willing division, to love and self-offering. The gods learn to give, and through their giving, the universe learns to live. At the heart of these stories lies the same paradox. The divine does not create by power, but by loss. In every myth, to bring something into existence, something infinite must break. The creator diminishes itself to make space for creation. This pattern repeats endlessly, in myth, in nature, in the human soul. A star collapses to give light. A seed splits to give life. A heart breaks to make love possible. Every act of creation, from the smallest gesture to the grandest cosmos, follows this rhythm. The ancients saw it clearly. The modern world has forgotten. Today, we speak of creation as domination, shaping, conquering, controlling. But to the old storytellers, to create was to die a little. Every artist, every parent, every thinker who brings something new into the world reenacts the death of Ymir, the offering of Purusha, the leap of Nanahuatzin. Creation costs something because it must. The sacred law of balance demands it. Even time itself echoes this rhythm, the eternal return. The Norse imagined it in Ragnarok, where the cosmos, born of sacrifice, must one day be consumed by it again. The Hindu vision saw the universe as cyclical, yugas rising and falling, worlds dissolving into Brahman only to be reborn. The Aztecs spoke of 5 suns, 4 already extinguished, the 5th still burning with borrowed life. Each myth warns that the cosmos is not a stable structure but a living being, breathing, dying, resurrecting. Its heart beats through sacrifice. Its pulse is eternal recurrence. The gods die not once, but forever. Their deaths are the rhythm of existence. And perhaps that is why humanity, too, cannot stop reenacting their pattern. Our history, filled with both destruction and renewal, mirrors the same cosmic heartbeat. But these stories are not only about gods. They are about us. If the universe was built from divine sacrifice, then each human life is a microcosm of that gesture. Every transformation, the end of innocence, the pain of loss, the moment of letting go, echoes the same law. To grow is to give something up. To understand is to burn. Ymir, Purusha, and Nanahuatzin are not merely myths. They are mirrors of the human condition. Ymir lives in our struggle to bring order out of chaos, in the creative mind wrestling with raw matter. Purusha lives in the quiet surrender of those who serve a greater good, who dissolve the self for the sake of harmony. Nanahuatzin lives in every act of courage born from humility, in every soul that leaps into the fire despite its fragility. The body, the blood, the flame, all are metaphors for transformation. To live fully is to be willing to die symbolically, to let go of the forms that no longer serve, to offer oneself to the unknown. And so, from the ancient sagas of the North to the hymns of India and the altars of Mesoamerica, humanity told itself one message again and again. The sacred is not immortal, it renews itself through sacrifice. The gods fall so that the world may rise. They are torn, burned, scattered, but never destroyed. Their essence endures, flowing through rivers, echoing through prayers, blazing in the heart of every sunrise. The myth of divine sacrifice is not a story of death, but of continuity, the awareness that life is always sustained by what came before. Every breath we take is borrowed. Every heartbeat is a relic of that first offering. Perhaps that is why we still tell these stories, because, deep down, we know they are true. Not literally, but symbolically. They remind us that nothing is gained without loss, that every creation begins in surrender, that the universe itself is the scar of a god who gave everything away. In the end, the myths of Ymir, Purusha, and Nanahuatzin converge into a single vision, that existence itself is the altar, that every moment of being is both a gift and a cost, and that the gods, like us, are still learning how to burn beautifully. The world still hums with the memory of the gods. Beneath the soil, in the pulse of the sea, in the slow breath of mountains, something ancient continues to whisper, the rhythm of that first heartbeat, the echo of divine blood still flowing through creation. It is easy to forget. To believe that the age of myth has passed, that sacrifice belongs to another time. Yet every sunrise repeats the ancient gesture. The fire that burns in the heavens still feeds on what came before. The universe, though vast and cold, carries within it the trace of something tender, the memory of the divine that once gave itself away. We live within that memory. Every breath we take is borrowed from it. Every heartbeat is an echo of that first wound that became the world. The gods may have fallen into silence, but their sacrifice endures in the structure of reality itself. We walk upon Ymir's flesh, breathe Purusha's spirit, and bask beneath the fire that was once Nanahuatzin. Their stories are not relics, they are the anatomy of existence. Each myth reminds us that creation was not an act of conquest but of offering. That the highest form of power is not domination, but surrender. The gods did not build the world through will alone, they became it. They turned themselves inside out, dissolving so that something new could live. And perhaps that is what it means to be alive, to continue that gesture, to give back what was once given. Every act of love, every moment of compassion, every spark of creativity, all are small echoes of the divine sacrifice that began everything. When we create, we imitate the gods. When we give, we remember them. The ancients understood this truth instinctively. Their temples, their fires, their songs were all ways of saying thank you, not to appease cruel deities, but to acknowledge the cosmic debt of existence. To live is to owe, and to give is to repay, even if only for a moment, the impossible gift of being. Perhaps that is why the idea of sacrifice never truly disappears. It survives not in blood or ritual, but but in the quiet ways we offer ourselves to the world. The artist who burns years to make beauty. The parent who gives sleep to nurture another life. The soul who chooses honesty over comfort. All are forms of sacred loss, offerings that keep the invisible order alive. The divine wound is not something to heal, but to honor. For without it, there would be no movement, no life, no consciousness. The world breathes because something once broke open. And in that breaking, everything began. Look closely at the stars. Each one is a story of sacrifice, a sun burning itself away to give warmth to others. Look at the rivers carving the earth, veins of memory tracing back to the gods. Look at your own hands. Fragile, mortal, yet capable of creation. Within them lies the same power that tore the void apart and gave it meaning. The gods may be gone, but their pattern remains. We inherit their flame not as worshippers, but as continuations. We are the movement of their final breath, the light that refuses to fade. The cosmos still feeds on the old rhythm, destruction birthing renewal, death conceiving life, silence turning into sound. And so, perhaps the question is not whether the gods exist, but whether we still remember what they tried to teach, that everything precious demands a price, and that true creation, divine or human, is always an act of love disguised as loss. Somewhere, beyond the veil of memory, the echo still resounds. It calls softly through the wind, through the heartbeat of the earth, through the pulse in our veins. It is the same sound that began it all, the whisper of the universe offering itself again and again, endlessly reborn in its own fire. And if the first gods bled so that the world could live, then every moment of beauty, every spark of kindness, every light that refuses to die, is their answer still. The echo of divine blood. Still flowing. Still alive. Still speaking through us.